Come the 2010 general election, it seemed everyone agreed with Nick Clegg. During the prime ministerial debates he kicked David Gordon into next week, suddenly seeing Nick Clegg down the Broomhill Tavern was as cool as spotting one of the Arctic monkeys. But Professor Matthew Flinders from the University of Sheffield says that success came at a price.
Nick Clegg is suffering from two things. There's first the general pressures that come with being in government. Actually, what all politicians find out is that winning office is very easy to governing. But then he's got an added issue that before the election he made this very explicit and public pledge about no tuition fees. He holds a student seat and then he went back on his word.
Nick Clegg told his party conference to go back to their constituencies and prepare for vitriol and abuse. And he should know. He's had dog mess put through the door here at the old home in his constituency. He's even been spat on and heckled in the street. The first major area of probation work to be handed to the private sector has been in London, where we've discovered serious failings. In October last year, Serco took over the programme for running community service across London in partnership with the London Probation Trust. Newsnight have spoken to people both inside Serco and at the London Probation Trust, and we've seen documentary evidence that raises concerns for the safety of the public, the welfare of offenders and the delivery of justice.
Well, let's move to our political reporter Dino Sofos, who's at the UKIP conference at Doncaster Racecourse. It was only about a month ago, wasn't it, that Douglas Carswell defected, and obviously people were saying, well, is there going to be anyone coming next? And I think that kind of dissipated to a degree, didn't it? And even people like Mark Reckless were saying, no, I'm not going to go, and here he has. Could others follow? And also, could there be other parties? Nigel Farage has been suggesting that there could be Labour MPs who might go as well.
Yeah, well, certainly amongst the UKIP party members here, they feel they're on a roll and that more MPs, both Conservative and indeed, like you say, Labour, will follow suit. But I spoke to one senior Tory MP this evening who said that Mr Reckless, his defection hadn't come as a complete surprise, and he could only name one other Tory MP who he thought might do the same thing. But what's interesting, though, is that very shortly after Mark Reckless announced his defection, he also announced that he'd be standing down as an MP and forcing a by-election. Douglas Carswell, you'll remember, did the same thing last month after he defected, forcing that by-election in Clacton in a couple of weeks. So there is now an unspoken rule here that if you defect, the honourable thing to do is to resign and put yourself back in front of your voters. So if any other MPs are thinking of doing the same thing, then they might want to see what happens in these upcoming by-elections before they stick their necks out.
OK, thank you, Dino. That's our reporter Dino Sofos. He's in Doncaster, where they've been holding their conference.
But one man's come along to mix things up a bit. I've come to a hustings at the University of Bradford. You'll notice there's 2 empty chairs on that stage. The Labour and Conservative candidates didn't want to take part here tonight. So welcome to the George Galloway Show.
I think Parliament needs someone to represent the people who are currently unrepresented there. All 3 of the main parties support the war in Afghanistan, but most people in Britain don't support the war in Afghanistan, but nobody's speaking up for them in Parliament.
So you'll promise your constituents that if you do win this seat, you will be in Parliament, you won't be off making reality television programmes when you should be serving constituents?
I was never on a reality programme when I should have been serving my constituents. I served my constituents faithfully. That's why I was elected 5 times to Parliament, which is not easy, by the way. Maybe you should try it.